The comfort of lies. Why we hate reality. There's something strange we all do, and most of us don't even realize it. We say we want the truth. We say we want to be real, to live authentically, to see the world as it is. But when faced with raw, unfiltered reality, when life strips away our illusions, we panic, we flinch, we retreat, and more often than not, we run straight back into the comfort of lies. Not because we're weak, not because we're stupid, but because somewhere deep inside, we've been taught, conditioned to believe that truth is dangerous. That reality is too sharp, too chaotic, too uncertain, and lies, no matter how fragile, offer a structure, a narrative, a sense of order that makes the world feel survivable. But let's ask ourselves something brutally honest. Is it really truth we want? Or do we want a version of the truth that flatters us, that reassures us, that keeps us from falling apart? The world we live in rewards illusion. Think about it. Social media is a gallery of curated half-truths. News cycles are driven by partial narratives that reinforce our biases. Our relationships often depend on unspoken agreements. Don't bring that up. Pretend that never happened. Let's just keep the peace. Even internally, our self-esteem is often built not on who we truly are, but on carefully constructed identities, versions of ourselves that are acceptable, admired, or at least safe. And then something happens. A breakup, a failure, a moment of silence that stretches too long. And suddenly the illusion cracks. The truth seeps in, and it hurts. It burns. Because we built our psychological furniture on a foundation of lies, lies about who we are, what we deserve, what others think of us, what life owes us. When those lies are exposed, it feels like death. But it's not death. It's the beginning of awakening. And that's terrifying. Why is it so terrifying? Because reality is indifferent. It doesn't care about our feelings, our plans, our egos. It just is. It moves forward with or without our permission. And for a species that craves meaning, that indifference feels like a threat. So we invent narratives. We create gods, systems, explanations, and roles to play. We manufacture comfort. We tell ourselves we're in control, that the universe is fair, that good things happen to good people. But deep down, we know better. We've seen the randomness, but we felt the chaos. And instead of embracing it, we build fortresses of denial around it. Here's where it gets even darker. Sometimes we cling to lies not just because they're comfortable, but because they define us. If you've built your identity around being the strong one, or the successful one, or the victim, then letting go of that story, even if it's false, feels like erasing yourself. So we defend the lie. We double down. We edit reality to match the narrative instead of editing the narrative to match reality. And we suffer for it. Silently, chronically, endlessly.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
But there's a deeper reason we hate reality. It forces us to take responsibility. The lies allow us to blame others, to wait for rescue, to postpone action. Reality demands that we face ourselves, and that we see our own hand in our suffering, that we stop waiting for a hero and become one. And that's not just uncomfortable, it's overwhelming. Because if we admit that we've been lying to ourselves, then we also have to admit that we've wasted time, hurt people, betrayed our own values. That's a heavy truth to carry, and most people don't want to carry it. So we keep lying. We say we're fine when we're not. We pretend to love things we secretly hate. We stay in relationships, jobs, belief systems that are slowly killing us because the pain of confronting the truth feels greater than the pain of living the lie. But here's the paradox. The longer we avoid the truth, the more powerful it becomes. It festers. It grows teeth. And eventually it erupts in breakdowns, in midlife crises, in silent despair that no one sees. We pay for every unspoken truth with a piece of our soul. And yet, truth is the only path to freedom. So let me ask you something real. What lie are you currently living that you're too afraid to confront? And more importantly, what would happen honestly if you let that lie go? Because here's the secret. The truth doesn't kill you. It kills the illusion. And what's left, however raw, however broken, is real. And real is where healing begins. The lie that loves you back. How delusion becomes identity and identity becomes a cage. There's a kind of lie that doesn't feel like a lie at all. It greets you each morning like an old friend. It comforts you when you're afraid. It whispers in your ear when you're unsure, telling you you're doing fine, that you're exactly who you say you are. These lies aren't loud. They don't shout. They seduce. They become part of you. And over time, they become your identity. That's where it gets dangerous, because once a lie becomes your identity, you'll protect it at all costs. You'll defend it as if it were your life. Because in a way it is. We all construct narratives about who we are. I'm a good person. I'm a hard worker. I'm the funny one. I'm the one who never lets people in. These aren't just labels, they're survival strategies. They help us navigate the world. But what we rarely admit is that many of these stories are false, or at least outdated. They were created in response to pain, rejection, or fear. They were tools we used to survive a moment in the past that no longer exists. But we keep using them. And eventually they stop protecting us and start imprisoning us. Think about it. If you've built your identity around being independent, then asking for help feels like failure. If you see yourself as rational, then admitting you're emotionally overwhelmed feels like betrayal. If you've always been the strong one, then vulnerability becomes a threat. So you suppress, you hide, you perform. And little by little, you disappear under the weight of the role you're playing. And yet here's the paradox: you need the lie. Because it's woven into everything you do. Your relationships, your work, your self-worth. Letting go of that lie would mean rebuilding everything. It would mean uncertainty. It would mean admitting that the person you've been isn't the whole truth. And that's terrifying. So you cling to the lie, and the lie clings back. It tells you that you're safe, that change is dangerous. That truth is chaos. And you believe it because believing it feels easier than unraveling your entire sense of self. But have you ever stopped and asked, who would I be without this story? That question is nuclear. It explodes every comfort zone you've built. Because it forces you to confront the terrifying possibility that your identity is not fixed. That who you are is a process, not a product. That you are not a role, not a mask, not even a consistent personality, but a living, breathing, ever-changing mystery. And most people can't handle that level of uncertainty. So they trade it for control, for predictability, for a version of themselves that's safe, even if it's suffocating. This is why growth is so difficult. Not because we don't want to evolve, but because evolution requires ego death. It requires the death of who we think we are, or who we were told to be. And the ego will fight that death with everything it has. It will sabotage you. It will justify toxic behaviors. It will keep you busy, distracted, addicted, numb, anything to stop you from looking in the mirror and asking, is this really me? And yet, the truth waits. Patiently, silently. It doesn't force itself on you. It simply exists just outside the walls of your familiar suffering. It waits for that moment when the pain of pretending becomes greater than the fear of change. And when that moment comes, you'll have a choice: keep living the lie that loves you back, or break the cage and step into the unknown. But here's the part no one tells you: when you let the lie die, something beautiful happens. You don't vanish. You don't lose yourself. You find yourself maybe for the first time. You discover parts of you that were buried under the performance. You feel things more deeply. You speak more honestly. You connect more fully. And even though the process is terrifying, it's also liberating. Because now you're not living to maintain an image. You're living to express a truth. So I want to ask you something deeply uncomfortable. What part of your identity have you outgrown, but are too afraid to release? And even more challenging, who might you become if you stopped defending the lie and started exploring the truth? Because the lie will always feel like home. But that doesn't mean it's where you belong. The mirror of pain, why reality hurts more than fiction, and why that's exactly where freedom lives. There's a reason we avoid the truth. And it's not just fear, it's pain. Real, visceral, soul-deep pain. Because truth, when it's unfiltered, when it's not dressed up in comforting illusions, is a mirror. And that mirror doesn't flatter us. It doesn't show us how we'd like to be seen. It shows us how we are. And for most of us, that reflection is unbearable. It reveals the cracks in our character, the lies we've told, the people we've hurt, the time we've wasted. It shows us our cowardice, our envy, our laziness, our selfishness. All the things we like to think are exceptions or justified are laid bare in that mirror. And when we look into it, we don't just see reality, we see ourselves without the mask. That's what hurts the most. And yet, that pain is exactly what we need, because it's the only thing that can cut through the noise of our delusions. Fiction, no matter how intricate, always protects us from something. It offers escape. It gives us someone else to blame. But reality, it demands something from us. It demands ownership. It demands transformation. And transformation doesn't come from comfort, it comes from crisis, from discomfort, and from the unbearable feeling that something inside us no longer fits, and pretending it does is killing us slowly. But here's the strange twist: the pain of truth is clean. It's sharp, but it's honest. It doesn't linger like the slow, dull ache of living a lie. The lie numbs you, yes, but it also drains you. You start to feel tired all the time, not physically, but existentially. You begin to feel like you're performing your own life instead of living it. And no matter how successful, admired, or loved you are, there's an emptiness that never quite goes away. That's the cost of fiction. That's the price of comfort. The truth, on the other hand, is brutal, but it's also freeing. It gives you clarity. It gives you direction. It may burn you to the ground, but it also gives you the materials to rebuild, this time without the lies. And that rebuilding is where freedom lives. Because now you're not trying to uphold a false image. You're not seeking approval for a role you're tired of playing. You're not dependent on validation to feel worthy. You're simply living raw, flawed, and real. But most of us wait until the pain becomes unbearable before we change. We wait for the breakdown, the betrayal, the rock bottom. Only then, in the ashes of everything we clung to, do we begin to see clearly. Only then do we realize that the stories we told ourselves were never true, that the people we blamed were just mirrors, that the life we thought we had was a performance we never wanted to star in. And it's in that moment when there's nothing left to hide behind that we meet ourselves. But that meeting is sacred. It's terrifying, but it's sacred, because it's the beginning of self-honesty. And self-honesty is the first step to actual freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, that's chaos, but the freedom to be who you are without the burden of illusion. The freedom to make choices based on truth, not fear. The freedom to love without pretending, to speak without performing, to live without apologizing for your existence. So let me ask you, what pain have you been avoiding because you know it will shatter the story you've been living? And deeper still, what might be possible for you on the other side of that pain if you were brave enough to face it? Because the truth may hurt, but it's the only thing strong enough to set you free. The end of illusion, how embracing reality transforms your life, and why most people will never do it. There's a moment, if you're lucky or maybe just brave, when something shifts. You stop running, you stop performing, you stop pretending that everything's fine, that you're okay, that the life you've built is enough. You stop lying to yourself, and in that moment you step into reality, not the one you've curated, but the one that's always been waiting for you behind the noise. It's not glamorous, it's not easy, but it's yours. And for the first time, you feel what it means to be alive. That's the end of illusion. It's not loud. It's not cinematic. No one claps for you. In fact, most people won't even notice. But inside, everything changes. You begin to see differently. You start asking different questions, not how do I get more, or how do I win, but what's actually true, and what matters even when no one's watching. You stop chasing validation because you realize most of what we call success is just a socially accepted form of deception. You stop trying to be impressive and start trying to be real. And that's when the transformation begins. Not the kind you post about, the kind you feel in your bones. You begin to make choices that align with who you really are, not who you're trying to be. You stop tolerating relationships that are based on mutual performance. You stop seeking comfort in distractions. You stop needing to be right, because now you'd rather be honest. You're no longer afraid of being seen, because you've finally seen yourself. And what you see, though imperfect, is enough. But here's the truth most people can't accept. This kind of transformation requires loss. Real loss. You will lose friends. You will lose status. You may even lose everything that once made you feel secure. That's why most people never do it. They'd rather stay comfortable in the illusion than risk the pain of becoming real. They'd rather be liked than be free. They'd rather live a lie that feels safe than a truth that demands responsibility. And so, they stay asleep, wide awake, but asleep. They numb themselves with entertainment, with gossip, with ambition, with substances, with drama. They fill their lives with noise to avoid the one question that could set them free. Is this who I really am? Because if the answer is no, and it often is, then everything has to change. And change, as we know, is terrifying. But you're not most people. You're here, still listening, still thinking, still questioning. And that means something. It means that somewhere inside you, the illusion has already begun to crack. Maybe you've already lost parts of your old self. Maybe you're already grieving the lies you used to need. That's okay. That grief is sacred. It means you're alive. It means you're waking up. And when you finally step fully into reality, when you stop needing reality to be kind or fair or easy, and instead accept it as it is, you'll find something waiting on the other side. Not happiness, necessarily, but clarity, peace, depth. You'll stop needing to control everything. You'll stop fearing the unknown. You'll start living not from reaction, but from truth. And from that place, your life will no longer be a performance. It will be a practice of becoming, of unfolding, of showing up with nothing to hide. So let me ask you one final question. What are you still clinging to that's keeping you from being free? And even more importantly, are you willing to let it go, not someday, not when you're ready, but now? Because reality is waiting. And it's not perfect. It's not easy, but it's real. And real is where your life begins.